Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to Things Go Sideways. This is a space for honest conversation about the moments when life, leadership, or work doesn't just get uncomfortable, it becomes impossible to manage. It becomes impossible to fix or smooth over. These aren't stories about best practices or clean solutions. They are stories about reckoning, and they are stories about what happens when values meet reality and something has to give. Today, I'm joined by Simon Mont. He's the founder of Harmonize Consulting. Simon works with organizations that are trying, often earnestly, to live their values in the real world. And he spends a lot of time with groups right at the point where alignment breaks down, where conflict surfaces, and where old structures stop working. Simon, thank you for being here. Did I get your last name right? Did I say it?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks so much, KiKi.
Okay, I'm glad that you're here because I have to say, I was perusing your website. I listened to a previous podcast that you were on, and I got really excited about talking with you and learning a little bit more about your own stories, your own sideways stories that have sort of led you into the work that you do. So, I mean, with that segue, when you look back across your life or your work, what's a sideways moment that you couldn't out organize, you couldn't outthink, you couldn't values statement your way around?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you and like get into the heart and realness of it. Spend a lot of time like as a professional, so it's really nice to just have that like honest conversation about what it's like to be a human.
Yeah.
I think for me, the first one that was really like a big deal was I was a school teacher in a little one stoplight town in South Arkansas.
Mm.
And it was basically, those movies about the hero teacher that goes into the school and they go in and things are really crummy and then they start to make progress, but then things go bad. And then
Yeah.
they're like 3/4 of the way through the movie, it looks like they'll never recover. But then at the end, there's this like big hero moment and everyone comes together.
It turns around and they're high-fiving and they're singing and stuff.
Yeah, you know this movie, right?
Yes.
I basically lived that movie, except without the final act. It just never turned around.
Oh, denied. Oh,
So and it got really bad, to the point where I actually woke up one morning trying to go to school. And it had been after months where every morning I would wake up in the morning, set my alarm early so that I could have a panic attack on the bathroom floor, get myself together, go to work, come
it's
back.
good that you coordinated that sort of
At
mental breakdown
lunch,
element.
another panic attack. I mean, just kind of kept moving through. There were a lot of dramatic stories, but one morning I woke up and I just had this complete breakdown, right to the point of like hallucinating, kind of like a schizophrenic break almost. And I was in this space of like, oh, not going to work, and I need to figure out how to get myself out of this situation as quickly as possible. I need to go somewhere where I have support. I need to go somewhere where there's mental health professionals that I trust. Like I'm losing it. And I was like really thankful that somehow I was able to get on a plane and get somewhere where I felt safe and I could start the process of putting myself back together. But as I did that,
Mm.
the big realization was like, hang on. What drove me to this point was not one event. It was not just that I was in a stressful situation. It was something about every way that I was living my life. It was like everything about how I was making choices and who I thought I was and how I was coping with stress and my story about who I needed to be and my story about what was good and what was bad. All of it had somehow driven me to a point where it was essentially like this brick wall and I just splatted. um, against it. And then that really shook me in terms of everything, in terms of my identity, my values, my sense of reality, and my sense of spirituality. And the thing that really crumbled the most was like the idea of savior and the idea of strong man, because that's what I was following. I was following like, let me be good and help people, and let me be strong and manly, and this is how I'm supposed to do it. And that led me to join a program called Teach for America. And then I looked, I was like, oh, Teach for America, they're trying to do good.
Yeah.
But they really taught me more how to be a savior and taught me more how to think that I was better than people and really reinforced that and really reinforced that I was kind of like, that I just needed to muscle through things. And then I was like waking up in the morning and being like, I had post-it notes on my little affirmations on my mirror. And it was like, basically, it was like just mean to myself, right? Just
Oh,
like get up and deal with it. And I was like, oh, and that's how I was orienting toward myself. I was just trying to muscle through and trying to help, but think that I'm superior and think that I'm alone. And then I asked for help, and they told me, I was like, I need mental health support. And they were like, you need to reconnect with the fire, light the fire that brought you here to begin with. I was like,
God.
oh,
No, I mean, hell, not fire. Okay. Like,
help. Like, I'm receiving physical threats from people. Like, I need help.
yeah.
So it all just splatted. And then I had this like identity collapse. And then also that was one of the big things that opened me up to some of the systems awareness that I work with now, which was like, oh, the system that was built to try to help the school system was replicating a lot of toxicity, and I was inside of it, and it warped me. And
Wow.
then the same thing happened when I went into other systems, and that's kind of the puzzle I've kind of been obsessed with, is like, hang on, if we're trying to do good, who are we while we do it? And who do the systems that we create teach us to become?
So, what you do now, you help groups today navigate conflict. So, how how is it that when this all got shaken up and you began to sort of piece together what happens next, how is it that you came to the place where you are today?
Well, I already known that I was going to go to law school before this had happened.
Mm.
So that was a really mixed blessing, because as I was collapsing, as kind of like my identity was melting, I knew that I had this really clear next step that would that I think was helpful, and that it gave me a container for my identity to melt. I had 8 months
Yeah.
for it to melt and reconfigure, and then I knew I was going to be kind of doing something that had a little bit of forward momentum, and I think that was really great. And it also forever opened up my sensitivity and my like awareness, really,
Mhm.
because some of the breaks that I was going through, it's like when you realize that not just that you're making up your own identity, but that like the veil between what is real and not real is not as clear as you thought it was,
Yeah.
right? And then there's kind of like the space of the spiritual awakening and kind of like the Kundalini awakening, but in a pretty scary room. So I kind of got that, and I would then became really interested and open to way more ways of making sense of the world,
Mm.
in terms of spirituality and energy and consciousness. And then I became more aware that the idea of like taking care of myself and being in tune with myself and the earth and being real and healthy wasn't like an option,
Mhm.
because if I didn't do it, I was going to hit the wall again. And so I became aware of that. And then I really was like, oh, the wall isn't scary to hit. The key is to hit it as fast as possible, as many times as possible. Because what happened was I built an identity for 23 years, and then it got shattered.
Yeah.
What if the next one I build is I only hold on to it for 6 months and then I let it shatter? I'm not gonna be that attached to it, right? And then it was this cycle of like, oh, the faster we go through these cycles, the
Hmm.
more we learn how to be in that deep unknown and put ourselves back together. And each time we go through it, things that we don't need fall away. And what is left is realer and realer and more trustworthy. So then I became interested in like going through the cycle, um, and
Interesting.
welcoming it in a lot of different forms. And I think that was a really big factor, and that's also like on a personal level, and then on a professional level, it was really this observation that I was like, "Oh, I wanna help. The American school system needs help. These people wanna help the American school system." Okay?
Right. Yeah.
I joined that and then saw all of the problems with the structure that was trying to help. Then I went to law school because I had like, I wanna do justice.
Yes.
You're in law school and you're like, "Oh, it's the same thing again." The structure that is designed to create lawyers is also replicating a lot of the injustices.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do, anti-mass incarceration, anti-sort of prison pipeline work. And I was like, oh, do I want to go into a more mainstream thing? I was like, I was at a public defender's office. And I was like, oh, while I really appreciate the work of public defenders, I'm feeling it turn me into the same thing I don't want to be.
Wow. Oh, wait.
Okay, okay. And then I was
Yeah.
like, then I became more interested in facilitation and community organizing. I became like, I got trained in restorative justice and started practicing restorative justice as this kind of like really different form. And that led me into my professional career, which was like, oh, so if we're going to do good, we have to figure out how to collaborate and work together in a way that does not replicate as much of this stuff as possible. Because if we're going to, like, for example, work on, the issue of mental health in the United States, we can't create an organization that demands us to work 60 hours a week and then burns us out because we'll just be creating the mental health
Right.
problem while we're trying to solve it. How do we do this? And how do I do it as an individual? And how do we do it together? And now I'm just like obsessed with the question.
Well, and I think, I mean, and a worthy question. Did you always know that that spiritual side, that were you always drawn to nature? Did that always look like that was something that was there, that was sort of a source of energy and knowledge and safety for you, or was that something that was a discovery?
That's a fun question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm. It was always a part of my life, but not in that same way.
Mm.
So I always had kind of a strong sense of being a seeker, and I was always looking for a truth that I could anchor in. And before that time, it, it was more of a mental search. And after that time, it got very visceral and felt, right?
Mm.
Because it was like before that time, if I was, you know, I wanted some truth I could anchor in, and there was like a little bit of a thing going on in me that's like, and I'm going to be the one that finds the truth, and I kind of already know the truth, and it is involves me being this kind of person.
Right.
I wasn't totally aware that was happening,
Yeah.
but then it was like, oh, that whole thing shattered, and then everything was up for grabs, and then that brought back the question of like, all right, what is the truth that you'll anchor in, and how do you know? And however you thought you knew before led you to a dead end. So now we need to really be different in the way that we orient and the way that we think. And I'm
Mhm.
kind of still on that journey, right? What is it that we trust of all the different impulses that we feel and all the different directions that we can go in and all the different parts of ourselves and the voices we hear inside and outside of us, and what is the thing that we defer to, and how aware of that are we, is
Mm.
now a bug in my brain.
Did you face any sort of pushback? Because you're talking about a path that seems pretty easy to understand as you're explaining it to me. I'm like, okay, yes, that is very rational, logical next steps. Going into where you're beginning to question as you're going along, like this system it's flawed in the structure. Did you get any pushback? Did anybody say like, I don't know, you wanna rethink that?
Some people did. I'm thankful that my parents have always been deep listeners with a lot of respect for my journey. So when I was telling them, here's what I'm exploring and why, they were like, all right, you know, I don't know better than you. Go for it. So they had some guardrails, but I think that that was a really huge support. And then I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is really a welcome place to question and critique, and you know, so there was a lot of that.
Oh.
And I noticed in most environments that I would go into, I would always have a step farther that I wanted to take that was uncomfortable for many of the people
Mm,
that I
yeah.
was around. And I think that still can be true, is that I'm kind of not comfortable in a comfortable environment. I always want to be like, hang on, what's the next thing? And that can make me a lot of friends and lose me a lot of friends.
Or it's like, "Can't we just be comfortable for a while? Can't we be?" Do you push yourself? I mean, are you probably the hard internally, do you put up a struggle? Is that where you're facing, the most difficulty
It's
before it goes?
brutal.
Yeah.
I have 4 Virgos in my chart. I'm no
Oh my
fun.
god.
I'm not going to be for anybody.
I don't
But
wanna see your organization skills, I don't wanna talk about measurement, I don't wanna, like, so you're analyzing
I'm
everything.
analyzing, and also this obsession with
Mhm,
unachievable perfection, right? It's
mhm,
like
mhm,
really like the moment I have this value, right now I have a value of being as aware as I can be and being as surrendered to the process of creating a sacred world by deferring to a sacredness that is greater than me. I'm like obsessed with it. That's what I do. And I'm also aware that I'm constantly missing the mark of it.
that's tough.
And I think that's part of the kind of blessing and curse of all the Virgo energy, is like I'm aware and I know what it feels like and I've tasted it. And now I'm aware of that I'm missing the mark. And I think a lot of us that are on really deep paths of alignment with
Mhm.
a really deep truth, the kind of depth that makes one willing to question one's identity, because it's like that deep, right? Everything is up for grabs because there's something I care about more. That kind of alignment.
How is it that you have learned to navigate through, and what have you learned so far, and what are you still trying to learn with that?
About like the process of coming into alignment.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm a master. I have nothing left to learn.
Well,
Groovy.
I mean, I brought you on here to tell us all of your secrets, you know?
Uh, what have I learned and what am I still learning? Yeah. It's a process that requires practice, and that the formation of an identity and a self story is a dangerous thing. I think it's particularly true for those of us who have gone through 1 or 2 cycles of disillusionment. It's really easy to go through your first breakdown, whether it's circumstantial, like mine, whether it's a choice, you heard something on a podcast or a book and it changed your life. Or a lot of people, they go to psychedelics and that's one of their things where they have this. It's really easy to go through that, then come out and think, oh, I've shed the skin and now I know. Right now, I'm aligned with my truth.
Yeah.
How many people have I talked to, like, especially in San Francisco, right? They took one acid trip and now they think they're the Messiah. It's like, yeah.
Just
So
wait.
I think that, right, every time I've done it, right, there's been a disillusion, and then sneakily, some other identity comes online. And now this story I tell about myself includes that I've already shed the falsity and I know and I'm already aligned. And then I'll start using that story. Oh, I'm aligned. I'm doing this. I know my values now. I'm out of the matrix now. And then that, if I believe that, it prevents me from getting the next wave of like, no, 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 no. You're out of that matrix and now you're in this one.
Yeah.
And then you got to, so I think for me, noticing those patterns and then figuring out how to attend to them appropriately, because the identity is useful for a while, right? It's useful.
It's serving a purpose.
And to feel like, okay, I can't I can't live in a constant state of I have no idea what's going on and everything's crumbling. I have to be like, and this is what I'm trying for a little while.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to try to do that, not take it too seriously. And now, like, my deep prayer is just to learn the lesson before it has to be smacked into me. Right?
Yeah.
Can I pick up the fact that the world is trying to tell me something needs to dissolve before it crashes me into the wall? Like right
Yeah.
now, a couple of weeks ago, I had one of these moments. I'm sure you've had these moments, right? Where like 6 different things happen over the course of 5 days. And each individual one of those things, like you could have written off. It was just like, oh, this was just a weird day. But all of the 6 things all point to like the same basic pattern in you. And they're all 6 of them are like, it's not working anymore. It's not working anymore. So this idea like, oh, I caught it and it hadn't totally crumbled my life. But now I'm back in, something I thought was real and trustworthy. I now need to learn how to melt. And I need to melt that through a combination of like focus and rigor and practice and compassion and slowness and holding. So I think that that's the thing is like,
Yeah.
careful about the identities, careful about the cycles, always be in the process and like go as deep or as far from that which melts you as is appropriate for the moment in life.
You'll hit the wall. There will be something that will lend itself to you making that change anyway, somehow. And a lot of us, we get trapped in that idea of, well, if I just try harder, where in the initial phases, well, it's just resilience, and just being tough. And I think that the sooner you can move past that and begin to understand, no, this is going to be a new season for me, and I need to understand what that looks like. I won't say it's not easy, but it's a better maybe transition into that new phase of your life than to wait until things fall apart.
Yeah.
So when you hit the wall. So where are you now? What are you seeing now that is speaking to you, that's beginning to arise?
I started doing organization development, mostly in like progressive and justice oriented organizations. And while I was doing that, I was very much inside of particular ideologies about what was good and what was not good. Kind of just your general progressive lefty shtick. And I was really in that for a while. And then maybe like 3 or 4 years into my practice. So this was 2019, 2020. I was starting to notice like, oh, some of these ideologies aren't really working.
Hmm.
We are all telling each other a story that we are like unplugged from the matrix of the dominant system, but we just created our own little matrix over here.
Right.
And at And then for years, it was kind of like slowly learning how to talk to people about that and challenge that and bring us into new places without being threatening. Because it's like, this is my community, this is my business, this is my clientele. And you come out too hard, I'm like, I think we're all inside of an illusion that you think is true, that you built an identity on. Let's think the client.
Yeah.
So there was a while of like, okay, learning how to be in my truth and kind of code switch and figure out how to do that. And then in the past few years, people are way more open to it, right? Way more open to questioning progressive thought and identity politics while preserving the underlying values of like, we're on earth, we got to be
Yeah.
good to each other. And by each other, it means like
Yeah.
everyone. And in the context of systems and the earth, like, let's do it. But some of the ways we're thinking aren't working, and we're seeing backlash, and there's something deeper, maybe spiritually, that we need to drop into. So I've been able to talk about that more and train more on that. And the entire time, I've also had this little bug in my ear, two bugs that are like now demanding to be heard, which is the first was like, am I going deep enough here with organizations? You go into an organization and they're still like, okay, we need a strategy and we need a structure and we need culture. I'm still speaking in that language. And it was good and I liked it. But at some point I became an expert in it. And I realized, oh, I, ha- I have a lot of answers for things. I have a lot of practices. This is cool, but I'm not sure we're all getting deep enough to make the change that we all need. And I'm not sure I'm bringing us deep enough because I'm not sure I'm there. And that was connected to this other thing that was an issue, which is I was spending, 6, 8 hours a day as an expert, and 6 to 8 hours a day facilitating a group of people, coaching people, where you're the person who's supposed to have an answer. And everybody's in this space of like deep instability looking for a path through. And you're the one who's like, it's going to be okay. Here's how we're going to
Right.
make it through. It's a really great service, but it stops the learning. It stops the wonder and it stops the ability to dissolve. And now I'm at a place of like, hang on, these things are connected. I need to figure out how to find completion about the expertise that I've developed, because it is real and I've been doing it for a long time. I need to find some kind of completion so that I can share that with others, and cool. And then I can re-enter a space of unknowing and a space of wonder that is the same depth that launched me on my professional career before. I need to get to the same spot because I'm realizing that I built my life on an identity of being a good servant of social movements who's very aware and conscious and spiritual and able to navigate power and race to help us figure out how to collaborate together. And that is the way that's the coping mechanism that I created to deal with the world that's crumbling around me and a psyche that can't comprehend.
Right.
So it's like, cool. That was awesome. I rode that for a clean 15 years. I would like another trip now. I'm ready to figure out what's there.
What are the steps that you find yourself sort of moving into in order to foster that, in order to help as you're going into that change? Are you seeking out more time in nature, more time for thinking? And what are you doing?
I'm paying attention to what I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a like, I could probably honestly do more of like cultivating intentional gratitude for what I have. But for me, gratitude is like the ultimate tuning fork. Because when I'm a diet, we're all gonna die. And my ultimate goal in life is to, as I'm dying, feel grateful that I lived. That's it. I don't want to look back and think, oh, I wish I could have, I should have done. No, I want to feel grateful that I lived. And the best feeling that I know in the world is gratitude, right? True gratitude for being alive, true gratitude for the life that I get to live, true gratitude for another person. There's nothing that is more nourishing to me than feeling that. So I'm trying to really pay attention to what evokes that gratitude and that awe and that wonder, and guard it jealously. Like, okay, yesterday I spent my day. What what was I like for most of that day? Was I rushed for most of that day? Was I grumbling in my own head for most of that day, or was I grateful for most of the day? What? And if I wasn't grateful for most of the day, and I lived that day another 3,000 times,
Yeah.
I get in trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
So trying to like do the things that make me feel gratitude, that I'm authentically grateful for, and that bring me that
Hmm.
sense of awe and that sense of wonder, and that and and listen to try to get there. And then right now I'm like in an interesting spot because I've made a choice to actually like double down on a practice that I know is not aligned with my complete future. I'm doubling down on developing tools and trainings and sharing them with the world because I feel like I'm in a moment of reaching completion, and that's the season is actually, and that I'll be so grateful once I've done that, and then I'll have more flexibility. So I think gratitude, and like you said before, like I don't like paying attention to the season and being aware of that and doing my best.
It's very difficult, I think, in this world to oftentimes to talk about how nuanced things can be because people want the clean, and then I knew this was the direction I was going to move into. These adjustments that we make because it's the real world and things are a lot more organic than that. It's not created to be a movie. It's real life. I understand intensely how people want to cling to these things to make them feel safer. And I bring this up because anyone who's listening to this or watching this down the road who is thinking, yeah, I'm having a sideways moment right now. I'm having I need to understand, how are people getting through these moments and what does that look like? It does feel uncomfortable sometimes. And I think it's critical that we don't try to solve the problem in such a clean and fast way that it's dishonest. And I think this is the way that we can avoid some missteps that are saying, okay, I'm committing to this new path. The only commitment that you need to make is to pay very close attention to how you're working internally and like the ways that you're interacting with the world around you and how you're reacting to those reactions. Like
Yeah.
that's it. I think the danger is trying to do away with that discomfort too soon.
Yeah. It's like this sideways, we're in a sideways moment. What is even the part of yourself that wants to go forward?
I know. I know.
What about embracing, what about it? What if it's all a sideways moment? What if just incarnation is just a one gigantic?
I think maybe it is.
Moment. Right. All right. Well, how do we be with it? I also want to when you were talking, when you said like the movie,
Mm.
I really felt like that was such a clear, like a distillation of an experience a lot of people have, as well as like a pointer to part of what creates it for us. This idea that like we're used to telling stories and seeing stories and we promote stories and we put
Yeah.
them on screens that are like, at the beginning it was this, and then there was this crisis, and now this thing, and
And
now we're sober.
yes, right.
And I think like I agree with you. Like life isn't like that. And I think another thing about the movies and the stories we tell is that most of us make sense of our lives based on stories that center humans. The hero's journey, or even this idea of like the sideways moment, right? We talk about what's the sideways moment for Simon and Simon's truth as Simon navigates the world. And then even on a global scale, like we're like, what is the story of climate change and humans'
Right.
cause of climate change? It's still people are the main characters. And one of the questions that I found like really powerful for me is what if the biggest story to make sense of my life and give me a sense of place in reality, I'm a sidekick in it and humans are sidekicks. What's that? What's that story? And what is the story being told beyond me that I can participate in? And when I meditate on that, boy, will that melt
Yep.
all of my things. And I think that that's been, yeah, that's been a really beautiful thing that I've sat with. That's fun to share.
That gratitude that you were
Mhm.
speaking of before, what makes that bloom inside? And like what really fires that up?
Where do you find it?
Where do I find like
Yeah,
my gratitude?
yeah.
I'm thankful that I get to spend time doing stuff like this that other people would be like, well, yeah, I'd love to just sit around and like talk to people and record, and it's like, but like I really genuinely love to learn from other people and learn from their stories. I That's a privilege. Like I get to do this and it feels really good. I think that there's so much beauty that's still around. Um, Even when things feel really volatile and scary, and I look for that, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think beauty is really special because it's like we get to experience it, and it's so clear that we didn't do anything to deserve it or
Mm,
earn it. Like,
mhm.
there's nothing you can do to make a tree or a sunset more beautiful other than receive it, other than just notice it. And this, like, because I feel like all those things for me are like the things beyond me that I'm like, I didn't, it's kind of, it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
magic. It's magic. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. I like
yeah,
that. I like that. That's great. Yeah, I love that. The things beyond me. Yeah.
there's,
Um, it makes me think about, like, the way that light filters through sometimes through windows and stuff, and you just capture it, and I always thought that kinda like the dust particles that you see in that light, like, how it's kinda looks, like, magical and, like, I mean, it also probably signifies that you need to, like, clean your house or something, but honestly, like, sometimes when like, you can kinda see these little particles, and it's like, that's so beautiful, to just see sort of this proof of existence and, like, air filtering through. It's nothing I'm doing, I'm literally just observing something that just is lovely that it exists, and that is that's great. I think that gives hope and it gives inspira it can give inspiration, but at least it can just give to be grateful in that moment in any sort of sideways space that we find ourselves in, being able to recognize those things that carries us through. Maybe that's the best through line is beauty and just observing those things outside of us.
yeah. I think the deeper the sideways thing, it's like the more that's up for grabs in that moment, the more we like lean into it, the
Mhm.
more we're available for a deeper and realer truth to
Yeah.
emerge. Like if you work a corporate job and you're like, oh, this job isn't right because I'm not getting enough promotions and I want another thing, so I'm gonna give up this job to go to another corporate job, right? You haven't gone very far down.
Yeah.
But if you're like, oh, I'm going to give up my profession, but I'm still going to try to get a job in a tech company.
Yeah.
Okay, you've gone a little farther. Oh, I'm going to give up. Hang on, I think maybe the entire system of American capitalism might not be what I want to participate in. And maybe everything like whoa, right? Oh, and maybe the stories from my childhood that I thought I am. Okay, and maybe like you go all the way down. If you can hang out there, then I actually think that most of us, and it's clear like you've hung out there, right? When you're hanging out there, you notice these other things. Like, hang on, nothing is realer than the beauty of the sunset that I did nothing to deserve, but somehow creates a place of my sense of place and belonging in the cosmos. And that is something I trust more than everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, everything I was doing was making me miss every sunset. Cool, all that. I'm gonna hold that right. So the deeper we go, and I think a lot of us end up at beauty, at elegance, at heartfeltness, at like slowness and a sense of deep connection, like at awe, at humility. Those are the places that most of us land. So it's like if we aren't visiting it regularly enough, that's a bummer.
I do want to ask you a final question that
Yeah.
if someone is listening to this and they feel like something quietly unraveling for them, or maybe not so quietly unraveling, that something's kind of falling apart, what feels honest to say to them right now?
Congratulations. You've managed to create or notice a moment in your life that is filled with deep potential and deep unknown. And that potential and that unknown is the place that gives life, that creates the thing that you long to be and the thing that you're destined to be. And you've now noticed that it's a season to like revisit the unknown and reconnect with it and reconnect with something deeper and truer.
Hmm.
And that's a really great, it's a really great place to be. And even being with the fear and the unknown and the uncertainty is also a really great place to be. And just do your best to make time to listen to it and listen to what you're listening to. Because it's really easy when you get into the unknown to hear the first thing that's going to bring you out of the unknown. And when you find something that
Yeah.
really starts to fill you up from the inside and drive you,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And then also like be gentle because you're not going to get it perfect. And each of us, as we navigate the sideways moments, are dealing with very different life circumstances.
Simon, I want to thank you for just bringing your whole self to this conversation and being able to just, share what your thoughts are, your experience, some of your expertise, and but really bringing that raw honesty to the conversation because it's truly valuable. I hope that to everyone listening to this, that if there's something that is in your work or your leadership, or there's something that keeps asking for your attention, especially through tension and discomfort, you don't have to resolve it today. Just recognize it, stop pretending it's not there. And that's a huge step.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll see you next time.
True gratitude
for being alive, true gratitude for the life that I get to live, true gratitude for another person. Like, there's nothing that is more nourishing to me than feeling that.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to really pay attention to what evokes that gratitude and that awe and that wonder, and guard it jealously.